So this is a good exercise because I can really bring my elbow in and really concentrate on the lateral head of the tricep.
He said he likes this machine because he can bring his elbows in. Well, and because because bringing your elbow in helps the lateral head of the tricep. And again, I'll say that you can't emphasize the lateral head of your tricep. The whole tricep works or none of it works. However, alignment is good. Alignment should be what you strive for. And that means bringing that elbow in. When your elbows are flaring out and you're doing triceps like this instead of triceps like this, then you're not doing proper mechanics. You're compromising your form. You're compromising the benefit. You're bringing in a little bit of risk of injury. So bringing the elbow in, aligned with the shoulder and the hand and the weight so that it's all on one plane like this, that's the better way to go. It won't change the shape of that tricep. Now, what's interesting about this machine here is that it's operated by a cam. Okay, now a cam, as we've talked about before, is an oblong pulley that has changes in resistance depending on where that cable falls on that wheel. So most of these machines that we find in a gym have a unique feel. And so we get into the machine and we experiment with it and we examine if we like the way it feels. But part of what we end up just using as a determining factor is whether or not we find more or less resistance in the places where we should find increases and decreases. Now, on an exercise like this, he's going to have a relatively continuous tension, but what we know is that muscles tend to be a little stronger when they're stretched or elongated, and they're a little weaker when they're shortened or contracted. So I'm anticipating that if I were using that machine right there, I might find that it's a little too hard to lock that tricep out because you've got a little bit too much tension. That's just my guess. I haven't tried that particular machine. But based on that wheel right there, that's what I think I would experience.
I like to try and bring my elbow in as far as I can on this exercise.
One thing that's interesting here is you see he's not keeping his elbow or his upper arm flat on here. Now the question might be, is that good or bad? Well, you'll see he's actually moving it up and down. And what we ideally want to have happen is we want that elbow, which is his pivot, to be right alongside the machine's pivot so that his arm and the machine travel the exact same arc. And by moving the elbow up and down, he's changing his pivot, he's changing his arc, and the machine isn't changing its.
As part of my evolving development of my body, I'm a very critical person with bringing up weak points. I feel that you're only good as your weakest body part. It's the whole package that we're trying to achieve. And for me, my left tricep just happens to be more developed than my right.
Okay, so that's interesting. So what he's saying there is that he has noticed a difference between his right arm and his left arm. He's saying that his left arm is more developed, his left tricep is more developed than his right tricep. And so he's going to tell us here in just a second that he spends a little bit more time and energy on the right tricep to try to bring that up. The first thing I want to say is that all of us have differences between our right side and our left side. Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, had a fabulous bicep peak on his right arm and not on his left arm. He had a big bicep on his left arm, but it didn't have that same ball-shaped peak. It was more of a longer, fuller bicep rather than a taller ball, more of a compact. And you can imagine that if Arnold had his way, he would have had both of his biceps match, right? He couldn't. That was his genetics. That was his fate. Now, I don't know whether or not it will make much of a difference whether someone spends more time and more energy on the smaller side, because in doing so, it would almost suggest that the reason why the one side is bigger is because it's been doing more. I think, we have genetic differences, and I think that he can't hurt by him doing that, but I don't know that it would actually help.
We didn't really incorporate it into the workout today, but I do typically incorporate additional sets using my right tricep, specifically focusing on the lateral head. I do a lot of cable kickbacks, dumbbell kickbacks, where I'm keeping my elbow tucked in and really concentrating on contracting that lateral head really well. And a lot of reverse grip, single arm press downs.
He's talking about the reverse grip and the lateral head and all that. Again, I don't agree. I don't think that we can change the shape of our tricep, but he's not suffering a consequence because of that. In other words, the fact that he's thinking about it, the fact that he's focused, the fact that he's squeezing, that's all good stuff. It's helping his intensity, it's helping his enthusiasm, so he's not suffering a consequence. He may not get a change in his tricep. In my view, he won't get a change in his tricep shape. But it's helping him in the long run because it's helping him develop the physique he has, because without that, he might be more careless in his approach to weightlifting.
And then the last set I did both arms simultaneously, and we did drop sets.
The goal of choosing your exercises is to try to present the muscle with as much variety of stimulation as possible, keeping in mind that the only thing that the muscle can recognize is what they call the resistance curve, where in a range of motion that muscle finds less or more resistance. And the way you do that is by varying the angles relative to the resistance.
I wasn't really paying attention to the weight I was using. I started out with the full stack, did as many as I could. I really wasn't even counting. And then I just dropped 5 or 6 plates, did as many as I could, same thing. I did 2 drops. And had I been counting, I think I was probably around 40 repetitions or so. So really pounding those triceps and really finishing them off at the end.
This isn't really rocket science. This is really basic. So when I see people in the gym doing really bizarre exercises, it makes me say to myself, did they not get the result they wanted from the basics? The basics are great. Standing dumbbell curls, standing barbell curl, preacher barbell, preacher cable, machine cable, concentration, spider curls. These are all great exercises. There's no need to make them more complicated than that. Tricep push downs is one of the best. Flat barbell, tricep extensions, flat barbell, dumbbell tricep extensions. Whether you're using a cable, whether you're using, it's all good stuff. The thing that I would always recommend is keep an eye on making sure that the lever that you're using, and in this case for arms, it'll always be the forearm, right? Whether you're doing bicep or tricep, but in opposite directions, of course, make sure that this lever at some point in the range of motion crosses perpendicularly to resistance, whatever it happens to be.
That's it. That's probably 40 reps or so.